we have joining us today an absolute firebrand in the United Kingdom, who has been leading the charge for many years against the net zero nonsense and insanity in the UK. She was especially successful with Car 26, an organization that she herself formed, taking on the Goliath of the environmental movement, taking on the Goliath of the so-called consensus politics. We've been very fortunate to, in the past year, bring her on board with the Heartland Institute with the formation of Heartland UK. So to share some thoughts with you, I am very pleased to introduce the director of Heartland Institute UK/Europe, Lois Perry.
Thank you very much. What an introduction, and I look forward to doing an in conversation with you afterwards. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honoured to be here to talk to you about the exciting developments in the UK. The tide is turning, and this particular tidal, sea level, whatever the greenies want to call it, has absolutely nothing to do with alleged climate change, I can assure you. The people have had enough. They've had enough of being poor. They've had enough of living standards being completely annihilated, enough of being told what to do, what to tweet, what opinions to have. Currently 30 arrests per day in the United Kingdom just on social media posts. They've had enough of being told where to go, where they can drive, if they can drive, what they can drive. They've had enough of being cold or having to choose between heating and eating. Of being told that their very existence, that them being alive, that the carbon that they represent is indeed bad for the planet, and that they're racist and they're homophobic or some such nonsense constantly. They're sick of their religion being eroded and demonized, whether that's Christianity or indeed for British Jews, not only their faith, but also their right to exist, full stop, to have a home state, and their entire existence being questioned. But most of all, they're sick that until very recently, there was a cozy consensus between the two main political parties where you couldn't get a proverbial hair's breadth between them on policies such as net zero, economically ruinous net zero policies, but also on mass uncontrolled immigration. But then something happened. Something happened that was so seismic and so earth-shattering that the establishment has taken a while to catch up. Nigel Farage took over as the leader of Reform UK. And with that, the game completely changed. Or, as they say in Sherlock Holmes, the game is now afoot. Suddenly there was a choice. Oh my goodness, a choice. We the British people, we hadn't had a choice for ages. They've got a choice. They've got a choice on everything. They were betrayed on Brexit, ignored on legitimate concerns on immigration, ignored on practically everything. Then suddenly there's a leader of a party with a proven track record, not only of winning, but of defiantly beating the odds. Nigel Farage pretty much single-handedly won the Leave referendum on the UK leaving the EU. In the last general election, they won 5 seats. Now, I can't tell you how much the odds are stacked against a brand new party winning anything in the British Parliament with the first past the post system. All the polls now in fact, every single one for the last over 100 polls have shown that Reform UK look likely to win a majority in the next general election and forming a government with Nigel as Prime Minister. But enough about Nigel Farage. For now, I'm often accused of him being the only thing that I talk about. In fact, when Liz Truss interviewed me the other day with James Taylor, she dared me to do an entire interview without mentioning his name. So I had to allude carefully. But James touched a little bit on my background. So I've been doing this for, nearly 4.5 years now. Car 26, Climate Analysis Reason, was formed around the time of COP26. It was a joke about COP26. I actually quite famously went to COP26 and was chased out by security and ended up doing an interview for Rupert Murdoch's Talk TV from the disabled toilet, with the security guards banging on the door, and Mike Graham, the presenter, saying, do they believe in free speech at COP26? I said, are you joking, Mike? I said, I'm hiding in the disabled toilet doing an interview with security guards trying to get me out. But anyway, I did my interview. It was quite interesting. It was like this. But you know, I did do it. When I started CAR26 with the backing of 3 Brexit donors, one of which was a Brexit MEP, Lance Foreman, there was 3 guys from Cambridge, and they knew that net zero was Brexit on steroids. Boy, if we were worried about our freedoms being annihilated by Brexit, that had nothing on what they were planning for us with net zero. So they put a bit of money behind me and we got going. There had been some other organisations in the UK, like the GWPF, which had done amazing work. But I think it's fair to say that the powers that be, including Ofcom, who said that I was the most dangerous woman in Britain at one point, weren't expecting a loud blonde Essex girl coming onto television wearing cocktail dresses and talking about, say, you know, that net zero was a load of rubbish. But it had a big impact. We won the hearts and minds of the British people. They started to see it for a scam. They started to see it for what it was. And I got banned basically from everything for a while. And then everyone started agreeing with me, and I was invited back on. In fact, the first time I met, oh God, I'm going to mention him again, NF, was on when he interviewed me on GB News. And actually, he accused me of being a conspiracy theorist at first. The other day, I mentioned that at the lunch that he hosted for us, didn't I, James? He said, oh, well, why would they be doing this? You know, why would they be doing this, Lois? Isn't it a bit of a conspiracy theory? I think it's fair to say that he's come quite a considerable long way from that. I mean, his original thoughts on saving the planet before I started nagging him 4 years ago was to plant more trees. So I think it's fair to say that we've come a long way from that. It was a big success, CAR26, but like all good things, it came to a close. Basically, I spent all their money. No, that's a joke. And I had the massive good fortune to have had a very good working relationship with the Heartland USA. And in fact, James and others had come to my CAR26 dinners, which I hosted quite regularly, which became, I think infamous is a good word. Yeah, slightly infamous, mainly because of me and champagne consumption. But the less we talk about that, the better. And James asked me if I could organise for Nigel to speak in Chicago. And I said, yeah, I'll try. I can't promise, but I'll try. And it was the 40th anniversary of the Heartland Institute, and it was an amazing night. And Nigel spoke, and it was the seed of an idea that night, the seed of an idea that we could have the Heartland UK and Europe. And from that night, it took a few months to come to fruition, but from that night, it was born. That the seed grew into from a little acorn does great oak trees grow, and now I represent. I'm the director, very proudly the director of the Heartland Institute UK and Europe, and we have made huge progress. Huge progress. In fact, NF has on many occasions credited publicly the key role that me personally and the Heartland has played in influencing Reform UK policy. And I am delighted to inform you, those in the room and those online, that directly based on our influence as an organisation, that the policy of Reform UK and their immediate policy when they form the next government is to the complete reindustrialisation of the UK, fuelled quite literally by abolishing not some, but all of the net zero policies and targets absolutely immediately. This will include the abolishing of all subsidies for pointless unreliables, as Alex Epstein so succinctly puts them, and the Marxist net zero agenda. Interesting point here on the use of language that the Greenies, I say Greenies, there's nothing green about net zero. The deliberate misuse of language. So using the very finite word fossil for fossil fuels, which we know is nonsense, and the opposite for renewables. So yeah, just a minor aside there. My job as the director of the Heartland Institute UK and Europe is to instill our ideas and policy recommendations into the political mainstream. We are a non-partisan organisation and we work with anyone who shares our beliefs. In fact, and I got in a lot of trouble for this the other day because I put a picture from the lunch that Nigel Farage hosted for the Heartland Institute UK and Europe. I put them on Twitter and had to take it down, but it's all fine. It's all been ironed out now. I got the impact I wanted. Oh God, did I say that out loud? Yeah, so in fact, there were the reason why it caused a bit of a stir is because there was quite a few Tories there, and the Conservatives were obviously, quite rightly paranoid about defections to Reform UK. In fact, we had the former British Prime Minister Liz Truss who spoke here on Tuesday. So let's not forget that only 6 months ago, the Conservative Party was wedded to the net zero ideal. I mean, completely wedded. As I said before, there wasn't a proverbial hair's breadth between both parties on that. And now, because of us, and because they slavishly follow Reform UK policy, because they don't want to be completely and utterly pointless, although that's not going that well for them at the moment, they have also pledged to abolish all net zero policies. And that is as a direct result of the work that we as an organisation have done. It would be silly, though, to say that as an organisation, we do not have a very positive relationship with Reform UK. There has been a fertile reception to our work, and Mr. Farage has been very supportive of all of our events in the UK, etc. There is certainly a meeting of minds. This bodes well for the UK, but also for us. And my continued job is to make sure that this branch, my branch, of the extraordinary Heartland Institute, headed up by the extraordinary Mr. James Taylor, my big boss, is always at the heartland of the debate. And finally, I just wanted to say that if I'm not awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for perseverance and determination, I may personally invade Greenland or the Chagos Islands myself. Only joking. Thank you to the Heartland Institute for taking a punt on me. I won't let you down. Thank you very much.
Okay, Lois, come on over here.
Okay.
Lois said, I have much to say, but I speak quickly.
It's very.
So we may have a few minutes, and it would be wonderful for us just to talk. Which I agree with. So first of all, Lois, good news for you. We don't have a prohibition on saying Nigel Farage. So you don't have to say NF because we'll say it to the heavens. And Nigel has been wonderful. He has embodied what we believe in. He believes in freedom. He believes in prosperity. And any politician, no matter what party that they are from, that does that, they're going to have me singing to the heavens with their praises. But that being said, as you mentioned at our luncheon the other day, there were members of the Tories there. And the scandal was you posted this picture of the luncheon, and it's got Nigel speaking, and it's a beautiful picture. But you can see in the foreground all these very prominent Tories that are there at a Nigel Farage luncheon. But they're there because it was a Heartland Institute luncheon. Absolutely. Tell people about your ability to reach across the aisle and how Heartland, as much as we love reform, we also are connecting with and welcoming Tories.
No, that's absolutely right. And believe it or not, although they're not particularly receptive to the Heartlands message, I do have quite good relationships with a couple of Labour ministers as well. Well, not quite as good as my relationships with the others, but no, I mean, this is the Tories feel, I think, that the only way forward is to embrace freedom and prosperity. They know that what's happened in the past, their net zero stance is one of the reasons why that that they've lost so much support to Reform UK. So yeah, I've got good relationship with quite a few prominent Conservatives, a lot of which you met the other day. I have been actually a good friend of mine, the Tories, run me up and said, could you stop pinching all of our people for reform? So, but no, on a serious note, definitely, our reach goes far beyond reform. It's anyone that shares our passion and our viewpoint, I will speak to. And so, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And I think back to, it must have been 5 years ago when you started Car 26, and it was amazing because with Car 26 at the time, now we're talking about Tories that are coming over in the UK. That the news is Tories are coming over to reform, but really they're coming over to the freedom movement, which Heartland has been leading here under your leadership. So going back just about 5 years ago when you started the Car 26 organization fighting net zero, there were almost no Tories that would stand for what we stand, and the Reform Party did not exist. And to this day, we have Boris Johnson, who's still pounding the table for net zero, Theresa May pounding the table for net zero, former prime ministers of the Tory party. So tell us about the headwinds, about how difficult it was to gain traction with Car 26.
Well, I mean, it was extraordinarily difficult at first, which is why I think that the guys that came up with the concept with me of the original organization thought it needed somebody very different to head it up. It needed someone who could cut through, maybe use a bit of humor, maybe a bit of glamour, and actually bust through, take the mickey out of net zero, take the mickey out of all of the idiosyncrasies and the mistakes and the lies, and just show them up. I mean, I actually had a very good friend of mine who works for Rupert Murdoch's channel, Talk TV, tell me, she said, I had a call from Ofcom, and Ofcom is the regulator for British television, basically, and they are super woke. I mean, off the Richter scale. And she said, I had a call from one of the top ladies there saying that Lois Perry is dangerous because she's laughing at us, and people are laughing with her at us. At the net zero agenda, which is so important to them. I mean, the BBC won't have us on. I didn't expect them to want to have us on anyway. But I mean, that just shows you when you've got one of the most senior people at Ofcom, the television regulator in the United Kingdom, saying that I'm dangerous, then it shows you that the difficulties that I had. But I was called a denier, nuts. I'm sure all the women in this room, I mean, I would by no means describe myself as a feminist, and in fact, anyone who's would say that was quite amusing, me talking about women's issues. But if you don't, if you look a certain way or you are a certain way, you get quite a lot of social media stuff as well from people that don't agree with you, and quite a lot of it's aimed at your appearance and stuff like that. So, but I don't care about that. So, but so it wasn't particularly easy, but I just persevered, kept going, and I engaged the viewers apparently. So I kept getting invited back, and then suddenly there was a click moment, and we had some very big presenters in terms of GB News, Talk TV, and other programs who suddenly started openly saying, not at the beginning, it wasn't necessarily that they thought net zero was a scam, although that came later. The initial thing was, why shouldn't we be allowed to debate it? And I think what opened that door for me, I was pressing on an open door to a certain extent, and I didn't even realize, was follow the science had been, as a phrase, had been a little bit from the previous couple of years, because it was just after all the lockdowns and the COVID stuff. People thought, hang on a minute, we're being told we're not allowed to question net zero and to follow the science. Yeah, that sounds familiar, and if you're not allowed to question things, if you're not allowed to debate things, why not? So yes, it was difficult, but I do think that the period that we'd had with COVID and everything else made it easier for me, although I didn't realize at the time.
Outstanding. And I can attest to the fact that supplementing your vivacious personality is the fact that
I'm loud.
No. I mean, vivacious, energetic. When I go to the UK and we're in London, or even when we were in was it Birmingham for the UK conference?
Yeah.
And other places where you are, everyone knows you. Everyone comes over to say hi to Lois, and it's not just your personality, but you are everywhere on social media. As you mentioned before, you put a picture up on your social media, and it becomes a story for the UK media, for the big London newspapers, which is amazing. And of course, most of what you're accomplishing in that realm is calling attention to the fact that net zero and the energy stupidity of the present administration is causing real harm to Brits. So thank you so much for doing that. It's been a pleasure having you speak today, Lois.
Thank